Spring break had just started, but for me it didn't feel like a vacation. I was a junior in high school, and it was the first spring break I would have to spend completely alone in our apartment. My grandmother, who I used to stay with every morning before school, had passed away a few months earlier. Since then, my parents both worked early shifts, leaving before sunrise, while I stayed home by myself. That week, the apartment felt different, too quiet. The kind of quiet where every small sound feels louder than it should. Our apartment wasn't big. When you opened the front door, you could see almost everything at once. The living room, the small dining area, the kitchen door, and the short hallway that led to my parents' bedroom and mine. We were on the third floor. The windows were old, with screens that barely opened. There weren't many places someone could hide. That's important. A few days into spring break, my mom started complaining about something strange. She kept saying that when she came home from work, the phone next to her bed, an old corded push-button phone, was off the hook. Not hanging crooked, not knocked over. The receiver was completely off the base. She accused me of using it. I told her I hadn't touched it, but she didn't believe me. She said the phone was always perfectly placed when she left in the morning, and there was no reason it should be off when she got home. This happened 3 days in a row. Then came the day that still messes with me. It was a Friday of spring break, and I got home earlier than usual. The sun was still up, but the apartment felt dim, like the light outside didn't quite reach inside. I unlocked the door and stepped in, and immediately heard 2 footsteps come from my parents' bedroom. Not creaks, not settling noises. They were clear and heavy. My stomach dropped. I froze for a half a second, then did the stupid thing and rushed down the hallway, calling out, thinking maybe my mom came home early. The bedroom was empty. The bed was untouched. The closet door was open like it always was. No one under the bed. There wasn't even room for a person to hide there with all the storage bins. Then I saw the phone. The receiver was on the floor. Not just dropped, but placed. The cord was stretched, pulled as far from the base as it could possibly go. I stood there staring at it, trying to make sense of how it could have ended up like that. Out of pure fear, I tried recreating it. I shook the table, I tipped the phone, I bumped into it from different angles. The receiver would fall back onto the table or land near it. Never once did it land the way I found it. The only way to recreate it was to physically stretch the cord, carefully place the receiver on the floor and hold it there. It couldn't have happened accidentally. My hands were shaking when I picked it up and placed it back on the base. The moment it clicked, the phone rang. I jumped so hard I almost dropped it. I answered. It was my dad. Before I could say anything, he asked, "What's wrong?" I asked him what he meant. He said he had called the apartment earlier, just minutes before I got home. Then someone answered. He was sure it was me, but whoever answered didn't say a word. No breathing, no background noise, just silence. He stayed on the line for almost a minute before hanging up. He tried calling back multiple times, but the line was dead. Until now. I didn't tell him what I'd just found. I couldn't even explain it. After that day, nothing like it ever happened again. The phone was never disturbed. No footsteps, no unexplained calls. But I know what I heard. And I know someone, or something, answered that phone when I wasn't home. It was 8:03 p.m. when I saw him for the first time. I was 12. It was spring break, and I was staying over at my grandma's house like I did every year. Back then, spring break meant freedom. No school, no homework, just late night TV, junk food, and falling asleep on the couch, while my grandma watched TV in her recliner. She lived in a quiet neighborhood, the kind where nothing ever happens. Big houses, trimmed lawns, and porch lights always on. That's why I knew something was wrong the second I saw him. I was standing at the front window, moving the blinds just enough to see outside. At first I thought he was just another neighbor out for a walk. But he wasn't walking past the house, he was circling it slowly. He'd walk up the sidewalk, pause near the driveway, then turn and walk back the other way. Over and over, hands in his pocket, head slightly down, like he was thinking or waiting. "Grandma," I said quietly, "there's a guy outside." She didn't panic at first. She just came over and peeked through the blinds. Her entire expression changed. "That's not anyone from around here," she whispered. We watched him for another minute. He stopped near the mailbox and just stood there, facing the house. I remember the way the streetlight hit his face. He wasn't old, maybe late 20s, scruffy beard, hoodie pulled tight around his head. And he wasn't looking at the street, he was looking at the windows. At us. Grandma grabbed the phone and called the police. They showed up within 10 minutes, 2 squad cars. Lights flashing red and blue across the houses like something out of a movie. They searched the street, checked backyards, even walked through the side yards with flashlights. Nothing. The man was gone. One of the officers knocked on the door before leaving. "Probably just someone passing through," he said. "But call us again if you see anything." I remember thinking, that didn't feel like someone just passing through. That night, my grandma double-locked every door and window. She set the alarm system, something she rarely did unless she was going out of town. She even turned off the living room lamp so no one could see inside. By 10:30 p.m., we went to bed. Her room was at the front of the house, and mine was down the hallway near the back. And that's where things got worse. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way he was staring at the house. Around midnight, I finally started drifting off. Then I heard it. Footsteps, soft, slow, right outside my bedroom window. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but then I heard gravel crunch. My heart started pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I sat up in bed and held my breath. Silence. Then, the sound of glass shattering exploded through the house. I froze. For half a second, everything was quiet again. Then the alarm system went off. The loudest, most violent beeping I'd ever heard. I felt like the walls were shaking. I heard my grandma scream from her room. I ran into the hallway and she was already there, clutching her phone. "He's inside," she kept saying. "He's inside." I heard the back door slam closed. All of that commotion must have scared the man off. Later we found out exactly what happened. He had come back. He smashed a small glass window on the back door, reached his hand through the broken opening, and unlocked it from the inside. He actually opened the door. That's when the alarm triggered, and that's the only reason he didn't make it fully inside. He didn't know the police were already parked just a few streets over, finishing paperwork from earlier. The sirens hit almost instantly. Red and blue lights flooded through the windows again. When officers came in, guns drawn, they cleared every room. They told us to stay upstairs while they searched the neighborhood. They found him 2 houses down, trying to hide in someone's bushes. I didn't see him when they put him in the back of the cruiser, but my grandma did. She said he wasn't panicked, he was smiling. The next day we found something that still makes my stomach turn. Behind the house, near the bedroom window, there were footprints in the dirt. Multiple sets. He hadn't just walked by once, he had been there for a while, watching, waiting for us to sleep. That spring break was supposed to be fun. It was supposed to be safe. Instead, it was the first time I realized how thin a locked door really is. And sometimes the only thing standing between you and someone who wants inside is the alarm going off at the right time. If the police hadn't still been nearby, I don't know what would have happened, and I don't think I want to. Spring break couldn't have come fast enough. I was a college student drowning in exams, deadlines, and the constant pressure that never really leaves your chest. When classes eventually let out, my 2 friends, Evan and Lucas, suggested we go somewhere warm, somewhere quiet. We settled on Florida, renting a small beach house just a few streets from the ocean. We weren't the party type, no clubs, no raves, just a place to chill, sleep, swim, and relax. The first day felt unreal in the best way. Warm sand, a steady ocean breeze, the kind of calm that makes you forget time exists. At some point in the evening, while we were sitting on the beach watching the sun disappear, a guy around our age walked up and started talking to us. He asked where we were from, what school we went to, and how long we were staying. Casual questions, but he asked a lot of them. Eventually he mentioned a small party happening a couple streets away and said we should stop by later. Nothing wild, he told us, just some people hanging out. We hesitated, but eventually agreed. One drink, 30 minutes, then back to the house. That decision still makes my stomach tighten. When we got there, the house felt wrong immediately. The lights were low, not cozy, not warm, just dim enough to keep faces half hidden. Music played softly in the background, but nobody was dancing. There were maybe 10 people total, scattered around the house like they didn't know each other. It didn't feel like a party. The guy who invited us noticed us right away. He disappeared into the kitchen and came back holding 3 red plastic cups. No bottles, no cans, just the drinks. Evan laughed and took one without thinking. Lucas followed right after, but I stared at mine. I don't know what stopped me. The smell maybe, or the way the liquid clung to the side of the cup, or the way my chest tightened the longer I held it. I told him I wasn't thirsty. For just a second his face changed. It wasn't dramatic, just a flicker, a look of irritation that slipped through before he smiled again. That's when I knew something was wrong. As the night went on, Evan and Lucas started acting strange. Not drunk, just off. Evan couldn't stop laughing at things that weren't funny. Lucas kept rubbing his temples, saying his head felt heavy. They both swayed slightly when they stood. I checked my phone repeatedly, pretending to text, counting minutes, watching exits. Every instinct I had was screaming. I finally told him we were leaving. They argued at first, insisting they were fine, that I was overreacting, but I didn't care. I grabbed them both and pulled them towards the door. As we stepped into the hallway, I felt eyes on me. I turned around. The guy who invited us stood there, half hidden by the shadows. His mouth was curled into a smile, but his eyes were dark, angry, focused. He didn't say a word. He just stared at me until we left. The walk back to the beach house felt wrong. Evan leaned heavily on me, mumbling nonsense. Lucas threw up in the bushes near our place before we even made it inside. That night I sat replaying the stare in my head before eventually falling asleep. The morning was worse. I woke up to violent retching. Evan and Lucas were locked in the bathroom, throwing up non-stop. Pale, shaking. One of them said their head felt like it was splitting open from the inside. They hadn't even drunk that much. Later that afternoon, scrolling through the local posts, my blood ran cold. Multiple people reported being drugged at a small house party nearby. Their wallets were stolen, their phones were missing, and some people waking up in unfamiliar places. One post also mentioned a guy matching the exact description of the one who invited us. Same street, same house. I sat there staring at my phone, realizing how close we came. If I had taken that drink, if I hadn't forced us to leave, if I ignored that feeling. Even now, years later, I still think about the look he gave us as we left. Not fear, not shock, anger.